Hey guys, welcome back to my another video. This video is going to be a third video for building the applications on React using the JWT token for authentications, and I'm going to use the Redux for the state management. Okay, so far what we built on the first video is we built this app. We added a router on our applications. I can go in login, I can go sign up, so I can go in back in home. That's all what we did. Okay, so on this video, let me go to my food delivery app, which is here. So these all are the file which I added on the previous video. If you guys didn't watch the previous video, so I please watch the previous video to see how the router works. And now on this video, let me add a couple of these another folder, and I'm going to add a folder called not inside the component. I'm going to delete this, not inside this component, but on source here called Redux. Okay, so on Redux, if you guys didn't watch how if you guys didn't watch or didn't know how the Redux is being created, then I also created this series for Redux. You guys can watch it. I will also put that the video, the link below this videos. And yeah, so now let me create the store. And so in Redux, we need to create a store, and I will create a store and use something called create store and create a store. And this create a store, I will need to import from Redux. So I will just create this create store from where? From Redux. Okay, so once I did this store, I need to export this store. So I will export default. Okay, store. And once I export this, now I will put the store on my app, not app, sorry. Go back to the index here. I will add here something called provider, and inside the provider, I will add the app. Okay, and here in the app I will add store, not strict mode but store, and this store is coming from the store which I recently created. I need to import the provider as well. This is store and provider created, and here is app. I'll just save it and see if there is any issue here or not. Okay, we have one issue called expected reducer. The store here, it need a reducer, so we need to create a reducer for that. For that one, I will create another folder called reducer. Okay, and if I create a reducer, let me create a reducer called Auth reducer. Okay, so this Auth reducer is going to be basically the function. Okay, Auth reducer would basically going. Let me do it. You know what? Reducer. Let me. This will be a functions, and I will put the function will check the state, and the another one is action. Okay, that's all it does. So I'm not gonna create any of these function what it does now. So I'll just create these functions here and return the state, and I will return this auth as well. Okay, automatic, but it's an auth reducer. So I need to also provide my initial state for the Redux. So my initial state going to be a auth auth state, and I need to provide what would be my initial state here. So my initial state is I will go in my Swagger doc, which I'm going to use for the API here, which I have recorded a Swagger doc. Uh, and in Swagger doc here, it provide this kind of this object here. So I will use this one here on my auth reducer. I will create another one called is it's logged in or not. So the first thing is logged in is false, and I will pass my user here. Okay, so this is going to be a user object and save it here. So I don't need to pass this here empty. I can pass the empty here instead of this. So I'll just pass here empty. Okay, so here is a auth state, and in the auth state I will pass my initial state would be the auth state, and it will return the auth reducer. Okay, so it's going to return me the auth reducer, and I'm going to pass the auth reducer here, save it. Okay, in my crate. So now I will not see any issue on here, hopefully. Yep, I will not see any issue. Let me check what's really going on with the console as well. I haven't checked the console if there any issue or something. Okay, there is no issue at all. And I also want to use this Redux tool. If you guys know what a Redux tool is, you guys can check the Redux state here based on your applications. Okay, I haven't configured my application port 3000 on this Redux. Looks like this is it has a little buggy. It's getting this from different uh, different. I think it's getting from my Swagger docs because Swagger is also running on localhost. This is also running localhost, but it's running on different port. But still, I'm getting this a couple of these actions here, which is not supposed to get it because I haven't configured anything for the Chrome extension for my app here. So I need to do that, and I also want to use the Redux tongue for it. So to configure this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called compose, and this everything is documented on the Chrome extension Redux. If you go in Chrome extension Redux, then yep, this is the guy. Oh, not this one, I believe. Chrome extension dev tools. Here it can say that on create store we can able to add to see how it really looks. If let me add this one here, I copy this and I will pass this, not constant, I will pass this here. I will save it. Once I save it, now I will refresh my page here. So as you can see, my initial state here, if I go in state, is this login is false, and this is my empty here, right? Empty user, and this is what I defined on my reducer here. That my initial state is here, and I'm using this reducer on my store, and based on this store, I can see what's really going on with my Redux state, and this is my Redux state here at initial. Whenever it's initiated, then this is going to be my Redux state. Okay, but I also want to use a middleware to call the async call, and to use a middleware I need to I need to tell my store that I'm going to use their middleware, and middleware is going to be a thunk which I already added on packages. So I will create a compose, something called compose enhancer, and compose enhancer, let me check that I can see it here or not. In enhancer, advanced store setup, create, we can reuse this and we can use a middleware here, and we need to use something called compose enhancer like this. It says that we need to use this, and we need to can apply a middleware here using apply middleware on compose function. Okay, so I will copy this and I will go it here, and I will create a compose enhancer. I need to get this compose from my Redux here. Once I get this compose enhancer, then I can use the compose enhancer here, and here I can use something called apply middleware. And so this is a middleware which I'm going to use, and my middleware called tonk, and I'll just save it. I need to import this tonk also. I doesn't know where this tonk is coming from. So it's called Redux React tonk. Here it is. So my I have apply a middleware called tonk, and I'm also want to use this Chrome extension DevTools. That's why I'm adding this one. So if I go in my app, I think it's not gonna change anything. Cannot class the function. Okay, there is a issue. So if I refresh, let me check still issue, and it says that something is not right on setup. So let me go in my setup here, and this is coming from Redux tongue, which is good. Apply middleware is also coming from Redux. Okay, and the compose is good, and this is the compose, and I'm creating the store here, and I'll just save it. Let me check if I refresh. Yeah, I still see the issue here. Something is not right in my compose, and the compose is coming from here, and I'm using the auth reducer, which is going to be nothing but empty state. Looks everything's good to me. Looks everything good to me. Let me check on my packages on my. I do have, yeah, I do have Redux Dunk. I have React Redux and Redux. Everything looks good here. Refresh. Cannot cluster functions. Line number 64. Never see this issue here before. I never see this issue. Let me check my one more time In create store, I got this, and this is I call the compose this one, and this is come from using this window dev tools window.devtool.compose, and I'm passing the compose from Redux, and I'm passing the auth reducer here. Okay, and my auth reducer is nothing, is a state, and it's returning this one, and this is my empty state that is going to return on auth. So I need to use the Redux donk, and I call something called, oh, it should be Redux donk, not the React donk, guys. Oh, that's bad. So now, so let me check. Let me go to my dependencies. Do I have a Redux donk, right? What? There is something called React tongues too. When I install it, the packages, I install the wrong packages, guys. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry for that. Uh, I didn't even realize that I installed that. It's called Redux tongue. npm install Redux. npm install Redux tongue. Okay. Okay, now it's going to add Redux tongue. What is React tongue? I didn't even know what is React tongue is. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to install this. So while it's installing, let me check, or let me fill, I mean, it's going to install it. So I add a middleware. So now I will proceed on this, my project now. So while installing this one, so now let me go to the, where, let me rethink about it. Okay. Okay, let me go to the auth login, and inside the login. So now my Redux tongue has been added. Okay, so here Redux tongue is added. I don't need this something. I'm not exactly what is this, but I'm gonna remove this, npm remove this guy. I don't need this. Okay, I'm gonna remove that. So now let me check. I have, yep. Now I'm seeing now it says Redux cannot find a module because I recently installed this. So it looks like it doesn't even find it. And let me go in my store, and I'll just save this one more time to make sure everything is saved. Okay, so now, okay, looks like my other packages has been removed. Okay, now I haven't seen any issue. Looks like everything's working great. If I go here and if I check it, then yep, everything's working great. Okay, everything looks great to me. Everything's working fine. So now let me go in my register page, and quickly I will create state state for this component called register, and I will use something called use state. Okay, and use state. Okay, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this I'm going to create something called, it doesn't even matter, it's a user state, so I'll just call the user state and set user state. Okay, and the initial state would be empty, nothing else. So what happened is at the time of the register, this should not be sign in, it should be a register or sign up, something like that, doesn't even matter. What is this is use state is not defined, so I need to import the use state from React. Okay, so let me see how it looks like. Okay, use state is still not, sometime happen, you need to reload it to work. Okay, it's all register, sign up. Oh no, this should be sign in. Oh, what I did, I just go back and I didn't import this. Okay, I import this, and this should be sign in here. And this should be sign up, it's fine, sign up register is okay, same thing. So on the input here, this is a name input. I'm just interested on this, so I'll just on change, what I'm going to do is I will get the name, and this I'll get the event here, the first thing, and event I will get the name. So I'll just write here constant name, and name I will get from event.target.value. Okay, and here I'll do set user state. Okay, so I'm going to set my user state. So what would be my previous state? My previous state going to be a user state. Okay, on the previous state, what I'm going to add? I'm going to add a new object here. So new object is going to be name, and the name is coming from the name. That's it. I can literally write name. I don't have to do name on E. Okay. So now I need to do exact same thing for a user email address, which is here. But instead of name, I'll just put email. That's all. It's easy. So same thing for the password. Put it here. Password. Okay. That's all about it. So once I have everything, the form will go to submit. If I click anywhere you submit the user, then here the form on submit will trigger. And the first thing is I will prevent this to submit on each page in himself. So I'll use a prevent default to do that. And I just want to see what's really cooking with on our user state. Okay, the first thing is okay. Let me test this now. So if I go it here and if I reverse, let me check what's the error here as well. It's a for instead of for we need to use HTML4. And where this error coming from? I think it's coming from the register itself. Oh yeah, let me check. Here it is for then yeah, JXS doesn't like for. They want to add HTML4. Okay. So let me press this register button as well to see what's really going on. Let me refresh this first. Okay, no issue, nothing. I will click a name. I will add a name. Here is the email and my password ASD whatever. If I submit, then I will say this. Okay, I have this one, which is great. So now what I'm gonna do once I have this everything. So now the next step is to bind our register component to my Redux. Okay, so to bind the Redux, we use a higher order component. This is also a part of the Redux called connect. Okay, so if I use a connect, the connect will auto import, of course, on top here from React Redux. And once I have component, I will use a higher order component, so it will provide also two parentheses here. Okay, argument or parentheses here. And first one we will get the our state and our the action that need to be dispatched. And the second one we need to provide the component. So in the first here it's a standard Redux function. It's a function, not function, standard other keyword that need to be used. It's called map state to props. And another one is a something called map dispatch to props. Okay, this is standard conventions. Okay, so if I do this, so if I use a map state to props, then what I'm gonna get here is I will get the state here. Okay, and here I will return my state here. So state, so basically this will be a user state, so I'll just give them a user and I will return the state. So once this is done, now the second is to dispatch. So what will the dispatch will provide? The dispatch will provide something called dispatch functions. And in a dispatch, we can provide here, we can give a name here register, and this register name need to be called here when it's submit. So what happen if it's submit, then it will provide us the object, right? Object of the user that need to be create. So here we will get the user state here. Okay, we'll get the user state here. Now we need to dispatch this user state. Okay, so basically in the Redux, the dispatch is basically the type. It will check the type, which is going to be action type, and also the payload, which is going to be data. But for now, I'm not going to create anything. I'm just going to show you what it really does here. Okay, so I will just console log my user state so I can see my user state is coming or not. Okay. So now let me once I bind this to the connect this two, right, what happened is on register I will get this user and I can trigger this register functions and I will get this on the prompting where props. So if I get in props, then I could do a props dot user to get a data or props dot register to register the event, or we could also use something called props directly here. It is a shortcut form. We don't have to do a props dot stuff like that. We can say a props, and here on the props dot is exactly the same thing as a props dot user and props dot register, but we will get it here. And on the user, I can see what's my user is printing out whenever I submit this button. Click this button, which is right here. So whenever I submit here, I print this one, but you know what? I'm going to print the user, which I got from props. And let me print this first. Did I get any issue here? Let me check. If I refresh this, then okay, I didn't get anything, so I'll put it here. I'll put it here, right? and I put it here. So once I save it, as you can see, my props has something called is returning the state, and this is the Redux state. So basically, I'm getting the Redux state here. Why this is empty? I mean, my Redux state has. So let me go in my Redux here in the Auth reducer, and instead of printing empty, should be empty array. Okay, so now looks good. Everything's good. So we are printing our user, but instead of using the user, we need to trigger the event, and this is my register event. So basically, I'll just trigger the register event, and register event we will pass the user state. Okay, so once I pass the user state here, so I will get the state here. So now let me print you guys the state that is going to be register. So if I print here, it is my email, and if I just save it, okay, I've used the email here. That's why it require email functionality. So here it is, email password, and this is printing on register line number 98, which is here map dispatch to from. Now it's ready to dispatch. Okay, now it's ready to dispatch. Now what we need to do, we need to create the Axios call here, right here. We need to call right here. There is a two way to do it. Of course, the standard way is to it's cleaner way, or standard way is to create the action on different files and create the action there. Or we could also directly call here the Axios dot everything here as well. Axios get something get, or no, sorry, it should be post Axios post and stuff like that. But instead of doing that, we need to, it's better to clean an action on the different file. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create the action on here on Redux. Okay, so on Redux here, so we will create a, we already create a reducer here called this reducer. Now we will create the action. So let me create the action here. New folder called actions. Action. Okay, this is going to be action, and my what is my action is going to be, it's auth action. So I'll just give auth action.js. Okay, so in auth action, let me create the action type. So I can create a separate file for action type as well, but no, I'll create here directly. It's called auth action type. So basically, auth action type is whenever, if it's login, right? Whenever, if the login is successful, or if it's fail, then we could use action type, or we can also literally type on our action, but instead of typing is we could use something called action type, and this is basically similar like enum on a backend languages. If you guys use any backend languages such as Java, C Sharp, or TypeScript might have, yeah, I think it might have, or you can also use enum. I think TypeScript doesn't have, so not sure. But anyway, you could use something called enum. It's exactly like an enum. So what I'm going to do is first thing is a register suc success, right? If it's register is success, then use this, right? If register is fail, then use this. Okay, register is fail, then use this. Now let me create the action type. So it's sorry, not action type, auth. Now let me create the action. So what would be my first action is to register, right? So this is going to be a register auth action, and this is going to be a function, and here we will get our user state, which we define it, and we're going to return something called dispatch, because we use a middleware thunk, so we could able to use the async call here. Okay, so this will return our dispatch, and here we can call the Axios. Okay, give me the Axios. I need to import the Axios from Axios. Once I got this Axios, now I'll use a get function, and inside the get, now I need to provide the what's the Axios is going to be for authenticate. So if I go here, my Swagger doc, and this is going to be my API. I'll copy this API, and I will directly go in my here, and I'll paste it here. So I'll just use something called a register. That's it. Why I'm using only register, I will let you know, and I will use await here because we're gonna create a default the URL for API in another page. So constant here, so await, this is good. So on the constant here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna get the data. Okay, so once we get the data, we can trigger this dispatch. And in Redux, this is a standard Redux way. On type, we will get the we need to provide on dispatch two property. One is a type and payload. The type is going to be what action that need to be triggered, and the payload we will send the data. Okay, so in the type we will just use this type we created. If this is successful, so we need to make sure that this will be successful. So I will add the try and catch. So if data is registered and if it's successful, then we will return on the type successful, and we will return on the payload, then we'll return here the data. Okay, but I need to print this data first. So I'm using await. So I need to use async here to work with the await. Okay, okay, async is good. So but what happens if you fail? But if you fail, then what it need to do, it will return me this, and here the payload I can send the empty object as well. Okay, and I can print that in an issue that, okay, in an error that, okay, I got some error, or you can throw the error, it's up to you. So here it is good. So now I will also print the data. Okay, I'm gonna print this data as well. What's really going cooking on this data? So now I need to call this. To call this, I need to export it. So the other I will export both of this so other component can call this. Now register is ready. So now I will just go in my layout, not layout, sorry, auth register. So now here I need to call it here. So here I commented this out before. So still I'm already getting the data here, which is on the user state, which is here. So I need to use my register auth action here. Okay. So I will import this register where it's coming from, and I will pass my user here. Okay, once I pass my register auth action and or auth user here, it will return to the dispatch. And here it's returning to the dispatch using the async call. And if the register is successful, boom, if the register is successful, then what happened is, if register is successful, then it's going to call the reducer. Okay, it's going to call the reducer, and then my action is going to trigger. But I don't print any, I don't do anything here. So what I'm going to do is I need to take that action type, and I need to put it I need to update to my state on Redux. So to do that, action will check a switch statement. I know it's a little confusing, but this is how the Redux work, the reducer work. And as you know, I already recorded briefly on another video, you guys can check. But here what we do is we are getting the action, and this is basically the dispatch property that what we send. And in dispatch property is sending the type and the payload, and payload we're sending something called data here, right? Data. So what we do in action here, we will get the type. Okay, so in a case here, what type we will get? So we're already getting a type, something called auth action register type. So what we do, we put the auth action type. So I will import the auth action. This is the advantage of creating the action type, that you don't have to literally write it down here, and here the same action you can call this auth action type, which I created the action type here in anywhere, which is a very helpful. So once I get this, so now I will return a new object here, and basically the new object is going to be the login here. The login is true because it's already a successful. And in the user functions here, on the user now I need to return the data that is going to log on data, and the data I will get in something called action.payload. Payload. Here I will get something called action.payload, and here I'm sending the payload data only for this because I want to print this first, what is really going to print it. So I'm sending it right here. So what happened if something's not happened, if it's failed something, right? Yeah, so I need to write or return another statement here. If the action type is fail, then what it need to do is just return the regular state, okay, which is going to be this auth state here. Return the regular state. If anything's not happened, if the default is also going to be return a regular state. Okay, so my auth reducer is ready to go. Okay, so here I'm getting the user state, and in register, of course, register is not a get function, it's a post. If you guys can check my Swagger document, as I mentioned, show you before, it's a post API that is calling something called register, and now it's calling something called register. So now if I click it, it doesn't even work. So but let's give a chance what happened if it's click it, if I create new. But it will now even work, because I know why it doesn't work, but let me try here. So if I put something and if I submit, then what happened is, okay, now it's trying to post my data, right? It's trying to, here it says the URL is posting at 3000 and is going to register, because this is what I call it here, register. Okay, so it's trying to post it, but it doesn't post to it. If I check any other data information here, okay, it's trying to post, doesn't even work. Okay, because this is not the correct API. The API, my API is running on localhost 8080, so I need to post on localhost 8080. I can literally copy my this register API, which is this guy, everything, and put it there, and it will work. If it will work here, if I put everything. But there is there is a other way to do it. There is a standard other way to do it. So I'm going to use that way. I go in my directly on index.html here. So what I'm going to use here on index.js, is it index.js? Yes, it is. So I'm going to use here something called axios dot. Of course, I need to get this axios, small letter axios. Okay, axios dot, there is something called default, and default I can use something called base URL. So this is my default base URL that is going to call every time, because I'm not calling any other APIs here. I'm only calling my own APIs. If you're calling any other APIs, then of course, yeah, you need to write it down manually, or you need to write the if and else here, to validate it or something like that. But I'm only going to call localhost 8080. So I will use a localhost 8080, and I don't need to provide this here. I just need to provide up to API v1. So now my Axios will know that what is my the base URL that is going to call. Okay, so now base URL is calling a localhost 8080 API slash v1 slash register. Okay, and I need to also pass the data on the second configuration. So configuration, I will pass this data object here, user state. So now let's see what happened if I refresh this page. Oh, I don't, yeah, I think I need to refresh, of course, because I did some configuration. So if I pass something called test, right? Test, and if I submit, then it's, yep, it's returning a data, which is good. So this my, okay, I already got a lot of data here, really good, and it's posting it perfect. It's posting it, and let me check my Redux state. So as you know, the Redux state is data now, because what happened is whenever it's trying to create, I send here the payload as data. That's why. So instead of this, so now I need to send the user information here. So my user information is going to be data. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do here, instead of data, I will just do a res, which is going to be response. And here what I'm getting it is, I'm getting the date, not here but here, I'm getting the data. Okay, so once I pass this data here, so now it will change my Redux state too. So now I already create that test data. If I check you guys my, where is my, here's my table, then I already might have another user called, yep, test. So now I will create another user called test1, right? And here I'll call the test1 at gmail.com. So I'll give a password ending test1, doesn't even matter. So if I submit, so what happened now, the user is created already, I believe. So if I go in user, test1 is created, perfect. And if I go in my Redux, and here the init functionality, the init, I don't have any state here created, but in register successfully action is triggering, and I already see here, I already see what I see. I see my user expiration date, this. That's all. This is really good. I already see this. So I will use this, and on reducer, I update it. Okay, I update it, but I want to make sure that I did, let me check my state. This is my state. Oh, looks like is login is not adding on my state. Okay, so is login is not adding in my state. So if it's successful, I got this data, but is logging through, it's not updating in my state. Yeah, it's only adding here, and this is my, so if I, let me refresh some again, what would be my initial state? So this would be my initial state. So my initial state is a user only. It's not the is login. It should be is login false, and this would be my initial state. Let me check my store. Store is fine. I will close everything. I'll just go in my reducer and check my initial state for this Redux tree state. Oh yeah, I was inside that user. That's why. So let me write down now. It doesn't even matter. Save. It's calling. Yep, my login is true, and this is my user. Okay, so it's already updating my Redux state. And of course it's called it's success, that's why it's updating. Okay, so in next video I'm gonna make that if it's clicked then it goes to home page and show me my name as well. That I'm gonna do in next video, and thank you very much for watching this video, guys. Bye for now.